The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Los Angeles, typically bright with sunshine, now sulked under heavy clouds. Downtown streets were glossed in puddles and neon reflections, and the buildings looked as if they were sweating from the inside out. Against this dim backdrop stood the Stay on Main Hotel, a 14-story structure with a tarnished reputation and a dark history etched into its walls. Inside the lobby, the old fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. The elevator, sluggish and squeaky, seemed like a time capsule, cracked mirrors, faded buttons, and a camera in the upper corner capturing every movement. It was this very camera that would soon turn the world's attention toward one missing girl and the mystery she would leave behind. Elisa Lam arrived in Los Angeles on January 26, 2013, traveling alone as part of a West Coast trip. She was 21, a student at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, and had been documenting her journey on social media, books she read, coffee she drank, strangers she met. Her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, was filled with introspective posts and poetic fragments. She spoke openly about living with bipolar disorder, her medication regimen, and her ongoing battle with depression. She was a young woman trying to find herself in unfamiliar places. At first, her stay at the Stay on Main was uneventful. She shared a room with other travelers in the hotel's hostel-style quarters, but was moved to a private room after her behavior reportedly unsettled her roommates. Hotel staff described her as friendly, if slightly erratic. She roamed the city, visited bookstores, and posted photos of herself smiling in cafes, all timestamped and geotagged, digital breadcrumbs that seemed to prove she was safe. But on January 31st, all communication from Elisa suddenly ceased. She missed a scheduled checkout and, more disturbingly, failed to contact her parents, whom she called daily. Concerned, her family reached out to the LAPD. A missing person report was filed. Flyers bearing Elisa's face were posted all over Los Angeles. Her photo, black jacket, dark eyes, a half smile, looked back at passers-by from telephone poles and bus stops. In the following days, police conducted a thorough search of the hotel. They combed through her room, reviewed surveillance footage, and brought in search dogs. Nothing came up. There were no signs of forced entry or violence, no items of hers left behind out of place, only a trail that stopped abruptly. With every passing day, hope dwindled. Then, on February 13th, the LAPD released the now infamous surveillance footage taken from the hotel elevator on the night Elisa was last seen. The footage, time-stamped but jittery, showed Elisa stepping into the elevator in a red hoodie and black shorts. Her behavior was unexplainable. She pressed multiple buttons and waited. The doors didn't close. She peered out into the hallway as if expecting someone. She darted back in, hid in the corner, then suddenly leapt out, flailing her arms, her face an expression of silent panic or confusion. Her movements were erratic, as if she were speaking to someone invisible. After several minutes, she exited the frame, and the elevator door finally closed. The video went viral. Dark whispers flooded the internet. Was she running from someone? Was she under the influence of drugs? Was she having a psychotic episode? Or was something more sinister at play? Amateur sleuths dissected every frame, every movement, searching for clues. Theories multiplied: demonic possession, governmental experiment, ghosts. The Stay on Main, formerly the Cecil Hotel, had a reputation for death. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, once lived on the top floor during his killing spree. The place had seen suicides, overdoses, and at least one other body discovered in a water tank. Elisa was just the latest name in a list that haunted the building's bones. The atmosphere inside the hotel shifted. Guests began complaining about strange water. The pressure was low. The color was off, brownish, black even. Some reported a foul taste. On February 19th, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa's disappearance, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez climbed to the roof to inspect the 4 large water tanks. The air was still and heavy. The humming of the city below was barely audible. The tank lids were supposed to be sealed shut. But one of them wasn't. Lopez lifted the hatch, and saw something floating inside. The water was murky, but unmistakable beneath its surface was the pale outline of a human body. Emergency services responded immediately. Firefighters drained the tank and recovered the body. It was Elisa Lam. Naked. Face up. Clothes floating nearby. There were no signs of trauma, no immediate evidence of foul play. The rooftop was supposedly off-limits, requiring keys and access through a locked door or an alarmed staircase. And yet, somehow, she had made it up there alone. There were no footprints, no alarm triggered. Only questions. As the police launched a deeper investigation, public curiosity turned into obsession. Online forums lit up with theories, timelines, and maps of the hotel's layout. People pointed out oddities in the elevator video, the way the timestamp seemed corrupted, the delay in door function, the pixel glitches. Others noted eerie similarities to the 2005 horror film Dark Water, in which a girl's body is found in a rooftop water tank of a similarly grim apartment building, after residents complain about water quality. The parallels felt too surreal to be coincidence. Back at the hotel, tension buzzed like faulty wiring. Guests were horrified to learn they had brushed their teeth, taken showers, and possibly drank water tainted by a decomposing body. Lawsuits were filed. Elisa's parents, David and Elisa Lam, sued the hotel for wrongful death, arguing the premises had failed to protect their daughter from foreseeable danger. Yet the mystery remained unsolved. The autopsy was conducted on February 21. The results would only deepen the enigma. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office released the autopsy report on June 20, 2013, nearly 5 months after Elisa Lam's body had been recovered from the rooftop tank. The conclusion: accidental death by drowning, with bipolar disorder identified as a significant contributing factor. There was no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of sexual assault, and no indications of foul play. Her system showed only a small amount of alcohol and her prescribed medications, no illicit substances, no poisons, nothing unexplainable from a toxicology standpoint. But for many, the explanation did little to resolve the deeper, lingering questions. If Elisa had drowned accidentally, how had she accessed the roof, through a locked and alarmed door? How did she open the water tank lid, climb inside, and close it after herself if, indeed, it had been closed at all? The report included notes that only deepened the uncertainty. Her body showed signs of bloating, as expected from prolonged water submersion, but there was also sand-like particulate matter in her clothing. Her watch and room key were found with her, along with traces of a whitish fluid believed to be consistent with decomposition. But none of it painted a clear picture of what truly happened in her final hours. Outside the coroner's sterile report room, the storm of speculation intensified. The internet, now fully captivated by the case, split into factions. One group accepted the accidental drowning theory. Another insisted on something far more sinister. Something unseen, hidden in the creases of elevator footage, or somewhere deeper in the hotel's shadowy corridors. Back at the stay on Main, the rooftop had become a grotesque landmark. The tanks that once provided water to hundreds of guests were now infamous. Forensic photos captured during the investigation were stark: the metal tank, rusted and uninviting, the narrow platform and ladder, the difficult, near impossible route Elisa would have had to climb to reach the top unaided. Investigators had ruled out suicide as a likely motivation. Elisa had made plans to visit the San Diego Zoo next, and had purchased souvenirs just days before she vanished. No note was found. No final messages. Just silence. Police reviewed all accessible surveillance footage, but the only known footage of Elisa during the critical period remained the elevator video. There were no confirmed sightings of her on the stairs, in the hallway leading to the roof, or near the water tanks. None of the hotel staff reported seeing her that night. Search dogs, brought in days after she went missing, had reportedly not detected her scent on the rooftop. But then, the dogs had also failed to find her anywhere in the building, despite being within feet of the water tank above them. Inside her hotel room, police found her belongings neatly arranged: a laptop, prescription bottles, her passport. Everything was intact. Her clothing and shoes from the elevator video were those later found floating alongside her body in the tank. There were no torn garments, no defensive wounds, no bruises to suggest she had fought back. And yet, something still felt off. Investigators re-interviewed hotel employees. One staff member recalled Elisa asking strange questions about her safety in the days prior to her disappearance. Another described her as not herself, as though she were frightened but couldn't say why. The behavior was consistent with manic episodes associated with bipolar disorder, which she had acknowledged publicly on her blog. Still, many experts pointed out that even during severe episodes, ending up in a rooftop water tank was far from typical behavior. As the public combed through every aspect of the case, another strange coincidence emerged. In the weeks before her disappearance, Elisa had visited the last bookstore she would ever enter, the Last Bookstore, an iconic shop in downtown LA. She posted about it excitedly. But later, some online theorists found eerie intersections with the tuberculosis outbreak that had struck LA's homeless population at the time, an outbreak strangely connected to a test called LAM ELISA. The name match was purely scientific coincidence, but for some, it was fuel for darker speculation. The stay on Main's own reputation didn't help ease concerns. In addition to its shared space with the Cecil Hotel, it had long been a low-budget, transient lodging place for travelers, vagrants, and at times, residents with nowhere else to go. Crime reports from the area detailed incidents ranging from stabbings to drug overdoses, all within a few blocks' radius. The building's history made it the perfect setting for conspiracy theories. And those theories flourished. One of the most persistent centered around the idea that someone else had been involved, someone who hadn't been caught on camera. That the elevator video was altered. That minutes had been removed. That someone had followed her, remained just out of view, or lured her to the rooftop. The building's outdated security systems made it plausible, even if unproven. Online investigators tried to piece together the hotel's architecture. Maps of floor plans, photographs of the stairwells, even rooftop satellite images were pulled into the amateur digital investigation. Viewers noticed that the elevator's doors didn't close for an unusually long time. Some speculated Elisa was playing the elevator game, an urban legend involving riding elevators in a specific pattern to access another dimension, a chilling suggestion, given the video's unsettling nature. But the lap stood by the autopsy results. No injuries. No criminal activity. No evidence of outside involvement. Still, Elisa's family was not satisfied. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, alleging that it had failed to provide adequate security or warn Elisa about the risks posed by unsecured access to dangerous areas of the building. They contended that the rooftop should have been inaccessible to guests under any circumstance. In court, the hotel argued it could not have reasonably foreseen someone would access the roof and climb into the tank voluntarily. The judge dismissed the case in 2015. As the legal battle came to a close, the story refused to fade. It was kept alive by filmmakers, journalists, and online communities who saw in Elisa's death a modern myth, a story that blended reality, tragedy, and internet obsession into something that couldn't quite be explained. And behind all of it, the elevator video remained. A 2.5-minute window into the last known moments of a young woman who had simply wanted to explore the world. A woman who was full of life, but caught in something much darker. As the city carried on below, the rooftop tanks were drained, sealed, and eventually removed. The stay on Main would later shut down, then rebrand entirely. But the case of Elisa Lam remained rooted in the minds of all who followed it, not just for the horror of her death, but for the haunting absence of a clear, final answer. In the years following Elisa Lam's death, the mystery refused to fade. Though the official conclusion of accidental drowning had been publicly accepted by authorities, it never resonated with the growing community of online sleuths, paranormal theorists, and true crime enthusiasts who had become emotionally tethered to the case. The internet had already transformed Elisa's story into a modern legend, one that balanced precariously between mental illness, urban horror, and something inexplicably unsettling. The Stay on Main Hotel, once just another budget stop for travelers in downtown Los Angeles, became a landmark for all the wrong reasons. Beneath the Californian sun, tourists stood across the street with cameras raised, capturing the infamous facade. Tour guides adjusted their routes to include it. True crime podcasts, YouTube documentaries, and web articles racked up millions of views as they unpacked every detail of her case. Each time the elevator footage resurfaced, it brought new eyes and new interpretations. What made the story so captivating wasn't just the eerie circumstances, it was the suffocating uncertainty. The elevator video became a cultural artifact. Internet users picked it apart frame by frame, obsessing over her gestures, the timing of the door, and the ghostly appearance of her arms moving in unnatural ways. Her actions were described alternately as fearful, playful, or confused. Some believed she was hiding, others insisted she was trying to communicate with something unseen. The elevator itself became a character, a malfunctioning device that seemed to trap her in place. Theories erupted. Was someone controlling it remotely? Had it been tampered with? The Los Angeles Police Department offered no comment beyond the known facts. They had reviewed all footage, traced her last known steps, and found nothing that pointed to a second party. But that vacuum of information only widened the public's obsession. Atmospheric fog clung to the rooftop of the Stay on Main in the early morning hours, even in a city like Los Angeles. The water tanks, once vital infrastructure, now loomed like industrial tombs. In the months after Elisa's discovery, work crews drained the cisterns and cordoned off the entire area. Still, photographs taken during the investigation began to circulate, images of the tank's narrow opening, the rusty ladders, the shallow rim that separated life from death. These visuals, devoid of cinematic flair, painted a scene more haunting than fiction could offer. In Canada, the Lam family grieved in private. Elisa's parents avoided interviews. They remained quiet through the public frenzy, seeking peace in the wake of worldwide attention they never asked for. Their daughter, once just a young woman exploring the world, had been transformed into something unrecognizable, a symbol, a puzzle, a ghost in the machine. Public discourse began to shift. Experts in mental health entered the conversation. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, conditions she openly discussed in her online blogs. Her struggles were genuine and at times severe. Mental health professionals emphasized the dangers of romanticizing her death or twisting her illness into a supernatural narrative. It was important, they said, to remember that bipolar disorder can cause serious disorientation, paranoia, and delusions when not properly managed. Her toxicology report revealed that some of her medications may not have been taken as prescribed in the days leading up to her disappearance, something that could have triggered a dangerous episode. But even that left uncomfortable gaps. If she had climbed into the tank herself during a manic or psychotic episode, why had no one seen her on the way? How did she evade detection from security staff, guests, or even the search teams? How had she lifted the lid of the tank, climbed inside, and, assuming it had closed behind her, left no trace of struggle? In the vacuum of certainty, pop culture seized control. In 2021, Netflix released Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, a docuseries examining the case. It attempted to balance the facts with the folklore, offering perspectives from police investigators, hotel employees, internet sleuths, and Elisa's own blog posts. The documentary highlighted the destructive potential of online speculation, how misidentification, rumor, and conspiracy theories could wreck the lives of innocent people. One such example was a musician from Mexico, known as Morbid, who had once stayed at the hotel and was wrongly accused by thousands of being involved in Elisa's death. He had never met her. The case had become a cautionary tale. But even documentaries couldn't close the lid. Elisa's story still bled into other media. Artists painted portraits of her. Writers named her in poems. Musicians referenced her final days. Her presence lingered in the collective consciousness, not as a victim of a specific act, but as a cipher for collective dread. She was both real and unreal, familiar yet unreachable. The building itself changed. After Elisa's death, the Stay on Main underwent a rebranding effort. Management attempted to shed its troubled history by modernizing the decor and emphasizing its shared spaces. But the Cecil Hotel, its former name, was still stitched into the fabric of the structure. It had become synonymous with death, home to suicides, overdoses, and violent crime. The ghosts of its past were never far from public memory. Even paranormal investigators took notice. Ghost hunters and spiritual mediums began including the hotel in their lineups of America's most haunted locations. For them, the mystery of Elisa's death was inseparable from the spiritual decay of the building itself. Whether viewed as superstition or cultural metaphor, the narrative took hold. But beneath all the speculation, Elisa's voice remained preserved, in blog entries, in social media posts, in pictures of her smiling at bookstores and museums during her travels. Her words reflected a bright, introspective young woman searching for meaning, connection, and stability. She wrote about wanting to find herself, about being weighed down by anxiety, but always pushing forward. Her death, though surrounded by unanswered questions, was also a profound reminder of how mental illness can turn even ordinary circumstances into lethal ones. The tragedy resonated not because it was extreme, but because it was plausible. A young traveler, alone in a city, navigating a fragile mental state, making one wrong move at the wrong time. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened in Elisa Lam's final hours. All that remains is a sequence of events captured on grainy surveillance footage, a locked room of silence, and a rooftop where the air still hangs heavy in memory. Her story is studied, dissected, theorized, but never solved in a way that feels whole. Elisa Lam walked into the Stay on Main with curiosity and hope. She never walked out. And what remains isn't just a cold case, but a cultural mirror, reflecting the limits of our understanding, the stigma of mental illness, and the terrifying possibility that sometimes, the truth is too quiet to hear. Thank you for listening to Crime Echoes with Lewis. Please like this video and subscribe for more true crime content like this.